Hi guys, I've mentioned before a problem with the reform or the cut to the winter fuel allowance. The fact that while it may save the government about 1.5 billion directly, it may drive up costs elsewhere. If some pensioners, for example, who are entitled to the benefit for some reason don't claim it and end up switching off their heating to save money, they may find themselves in A&E suffering from hypothermia or some other cold-related illness. This could wipe out the saving the winter fuel allowance had achieved. And this is before we include people who have been actually kicked off the scheme. Economist Mariana Mazzucato agreed with this hypothesis when she appeared on Newsnight, but expanded the theory.
Simply coming in and then saying we need to cut in order to reduce that hole, my view is that potentially that hole only becomes bigger. Why? Because the cost of inaction is greater than the cost of action. In other words, if you're actually cutting areas like the winter fuel tax, that then perhaps even makes the people who are not receiving their winter fuel, and there's lots of pensioners who will not, and they then get sick and they end up in hospital, there's a cost there. And so any sort of modeling and analysis of whether this was the right thing to do to save, what was it, 1.3 or 1.6 billion has to be taking a long run view. And by the way, this is always true, right? Anytime we make a cut, it looks like it's a cut and it looks like there might be a saving, but in so many different instances, we see that actually that ends up costing the economy much more because of what it actually does, again, to the kind of social fabric, to the health and well-being of people. It costs less, to educate a child than to put them in prison. So there's all sorts of different ways.
Presumably you've got to find the money up front to do that. And where are you?
Well, no, because governments aren't households, right? I mean, as a person, you would have to do that, but governments always create money. The question is, are you just creating money?
By borrowing or raising taxes?
By borrowing, of course. Well, you could do both, but the point is, you don't just want helicopter money and spending for spending's sake. If you're actually spending in anything that kind of expands the productive capacity of the economy, but also health and well-being of people, ultimately, that will also increase productivity, it will increase growth.
Exactly. So in the sense that what you're doing is you're moving the pressure away from one aspect of the economy to another. So you're saying, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to take money from pensioners in a sense, and what we're going to do is allow the NHS to pick up the slack. Because there will be people who will end up in hospital. Now, some people will end up in hospital because they're not receiving the benefit because they've been kicked off the scheme. Or some people, and no pun intended, are experiencing a chilling effect where they will decide, I'm not sure whether I'm going to get the benefit or not, or even if I am getting the benefit, I'm worried about the cost of energy, so I'm going to cut back on my heating. And this is a major concern because what will happen is some people will get sick, they'll end up in A&E, they'll end up in hospital, and then they're costing the NHS a huge amount of money when they could have received this extra support at home and stay at home. See, there's also the problem with the whole talking about this. It's adding fuel to the fire. It's creating a problem that didn't have to exist. If the government had actually said, okay, we're going to maintain this benefit, then we wouldn't be talking about it. And elderly people would not be concerned or less concerned about heating bills. See, now that there's so much talk about it, people are going, oh my God, am I actually going to be able to afford to heat my home this winter? So people who will be in receipt of the benefit will cut back, and people who are not obviously will cut back as well. And this is a problem. But as Marina pointed out, it's cheaper to educate a child than to send them to prison. So if you invest at the beginning, you make massive savings later on. And when it comes to productivity, it comes to the economy, if there's less stress on the NHS, for example, during winter, it means they're able to take more people off the waiting list. And if they're able to bring down the waiting list, that of course increases productivity. So a small action in one place can have a ripple effect. It can have a massive impact later on. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.